All right, thank you so much, Congressman Cantor. Hey everybody, it's Morning in America. How would you like to hear from Dr. Bill Bennett next? He consistently rates in our evaluation forms, which, by the way, we want you to fill out and turn in, as among our favorite speakers, and we're delighted to have him come. And then he will be introducing our vice presidential candidate, Paul Ryan, right afterwards. Let me just mention a couple of things about this great man. As many of you know, he's written for many of America's leading newspapers and magazines, also appeared on many of the nation's most influential television shows. He's also written and edited 16 books, 2 of which, The Book of Virtues and the Children's Book of Virtues, rank among the most successful selling books of the past decade. Although he is well known as a Republican, he's often crossed party lines in order to pursue important common purposes. He's worked closely with Democratic leaders to fight for our culture, against the decline of popular culture, and also to end worldwide religious persecution. Thanks to Bill Bennett's brilliant mind, his writings and his speeches, he has an extraordinary influence on America's political and social landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, would you give a great warm welcome to Dr. Bill Bennett.
Thank you. No, I am not Paul Ryan, nor was meant to be. But he was my intern. Mindful how you treat your staff, they may grow up to be Vice President of the United States of America. More about that in a minute. It's great to be here. It's great to be with you. They said that Lincoln read only 2 books, the Bible and Shakespeare. For reasons that I've told you about before, you know me, I'm a pretty well-known Catholic. I will not instruct this audience on the Bible. Besides, there may not be a priest in the room anyway, so I can't get instruction. Anyway, you all read it on your own. That's a joke. That's fine. My text today is Shakespeare, all too apt, Macbeth, Act 4, Scene 3. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. It weeps, it bleeds, and each new day a gash is added to her wounds. What are those wounds? The men and women here before me this morning know this better than I do, but a quick recitation. The employment rate has been stuck above 8% for 43 straight months. The unemployment rate when Barack Obama took office was 7.8%. Today it's 8.1%. The labor force is shrinking to record lows. People are giving up looking for work, especially men. The August participation rate in the labor force for men was below 70%. It's the lowest ever on record. Since President Obama took office, median household income has declined more than $4,000. Half of recent college graduates are underemployed or vastly unemployed. More people are on food stamps than have ever been on food stamps before, almost 50 million. Poverty is at the highest number we have ever seen since the Census Bureau began keeping track, 46.2 million people. Black unemployment is near record highs, 14%. These are gashes that would not be forgiven others if they were in charge, would they? You can be sure of that. But as Mitt Romney courageously told the NAACP in a very smart appearance and a very good speech, and a courageous one. Yes. If I am president, job 1 for me will be creating jobs. I have no hidden agenda. If you want a president who will make things better in the African American community, you are looking at him. Good for Mitt Romney. Macbeth says the country sinks beneath the yoke, this yoke of debt. When Barack Obama took office, the national debt was $10.6 trillion. Today, it is now more than $16 trillion. That's heavy. And sooner or later, that debt will sink us. But the burden and the debt, as you know, and the pall, are more than economic. You didn't invite me here to talk about economics, not with Jim DeMint and Eric Cantor and Paul Ryan on the roster. It's cultural and spiritual and moral pallor that troubles us. It is not just about our money. It's about our morale as a nation. There's a sense that we, America, are heading down, that the shining city on the hill may be growing dim. 57% of Americans believe that we are in decline as a civilization. Think about that. More Americans than not think we are in decline as a civilization. You know, in the long story of inhumanity and misery that is human history, the American achievement is high and it is unique. And most of us today think it may be ending. Is this what has happened to us? If so, then this loss of morale is the worst thing this president has done to us. He has dumped our national morale and pride. I worked for a president, Ronald Wilson Reagan, who raised the economy, stared down the Soviet Union, and lifted morale. One writer said of Reagan, he was a captain of the ship who took the wheel in stormy seas. He calmed the passengers and the sea. The opposite has been done in the tenure of this president. It gives me no pleasure to say so, but it is true. So what is this? And why is this? And what does this? Where does this come from? 64% of Americans believe we are on the wrong track. Now, if those 64% would just vote on track. Some tell us things are getting better. But if things are getting better, why are people feeling so bad? If people are saying things are better, why aren't things better? And they're not. I will tell you another reason why today the country weeps and bleeds, as Shakespeare says. It weeps and bleeds for a man who literally bled, well, killed and brutalized by a fanatic mob in Benghazi. And the reaction of our leadership was not anger, not fury, not the terrible swift sword, but to the bleeding, the slaughter, the spectacle, it was bleating, a sheepish statement of weakness and wondering aloud by the Secretary of State and others whether our own freedoms, our own constitutional freedoms, go just a bit too far. A Muslim mob brutalizes and murders an American ambassador, a representative of the United States of America, to disgrace him and to disgrace us. They would murder us and brutalize us too, all of us. And our government reacts by shuddering and shaking and wondering at the consequences of our First Amendment. It blames an inconsequential fool of a filmmaker with a paltry influence for the venom unleashed in another part of the world. God help us. God help us. Well, there's another line in Macbeth about methinks I hear a voice. Well, methinks we hear a couple of voices. In the midst of this, there was a voice, one of Mitt Romney. he did not hesitate. He thundered this: "I'm outraged by the attacks on American diplomatic missions in Libya and Egypt, and by the death of an American consulate worker in Benghazi. It's disgraceful that the Obama administration's first response was not to condemn attacks on our diplomatic missions, but to sympathize with those who waged the attacks." Mitt Romney. And whatever timing and wording or parsing one may want to bring up, one may want to suggest as an improvement on his remarks, his words had a shock effect, didn't they? They had the shock effect because they were true. When they are condemned so broadly, so almost universally among the establishment press, it is likely that they are true. These were true for another reason. What he said, we read again. "I'm outraged by the attacks on the American diplomatic missions in Libya and Egypt. It's disgraceful that the Obama administration's first response was not to condemn attacks on our diplomatic missions, but to sympathize with those who waged the attacks." Mr. Romney was talking about this attack, but he was talking about other things as well, wasn't he? He was talking about a history. His words had a shock effect because in addition to being true, they were an unveiling, a revelation, a stripping away, and showing the feckless core of belief and sentiment that now animates leadership in America. Where do we stand with this part of the world? Where do we stand with Muslims who would do this to us? Where do we stand with a country which hesitates to respond? Is it an ally? Is it not an ally? We don't know. The answer is unclear. Much of the press, of course, quickly jumped in on Romney to kill this truth in the womb, something it is well practiced at. But that revelation and that truth will not die, or so I hope, because the message was received. I heard it on my radio show. I heard it from me early, but that wasn't so important. I then heard it from my audience, from outside the precincts, the normal suspects, if you will, outside the precincts in the grip of the new intelligentsia, the politically correct, outside of those places, I call the places defined by advanced attitudes and professed moral and intellectual smugness. It was heard in Texas. Yeah. When Ted Cruz was on my show, he'll be here this afternoon, I think, the day after he was elected, after he had Chick-fil-A at his reception. He said, "There's a new wind blowing, Bill. It's a new country. We're going to take our country back with our values and our freedoms." I said, "Where are you talking from, Ted?" He said, "Texas." I said, "Well, I know it's true in Texas. I just want it to be true everywhere else." But if California continues to lose the business it's losing to Texas, they might figure it out. Otherwise, they will be the Lindsay Lohan of states. Just can't figure it out. Just can't figure it out. What did I do wrong again? But the message Romney gave, the message Mitt Romney gave was heard. It was heard and it was repeated. It was echoed, it was approved, and the American people applauded it. God help it to be seen and heard elsewhere, in Ohio and in Colorado and in Iowa and in Virginia. And everywhere else, and I will end with Wisconsin.